In psychology, attitude is a psychological component that characterizes a person. It can be form of a person's past and present. The process of attitude formation. Attitude formation begins right from childhood. Environmental factors play an important part in the formation of attitude. The most important influence is of the immediate social environment which occurs on attitude formation. The social environment, such as family, friends, neighborhood, place of work, school, etc., play important role in attitude formation. People usually adjust their attitudes to with those that are most prevalent in the social groups to which they belong. So we adjust our attitudes according to the groups where we belong. So now we shall discuss some of the factors that help in the formation of attitude. So, there are four distinct ways in which attitudes can form towards some issue, event, person, or thing. So, they are first one, mere exposure to information, associative learning or group affiliation, self perception, and functional reasons. These four ways in which attitudes can be formed apply mostly when there is no prior or existing attitude or knowledge about the attitude object. So these four ways play an important role when there is no attitude earlier. So if a individual has no attitude or no knowledge about attitude, then these four works. So which means an attitude, this formation occurs right from our childhood because it starts at our childhood. So the first one is exposure to information. The mere exposure effect is the tendency to develop more positive feeling towards objects and individuals the more we are exposed to them. The mere exposure effect is a psychological phenomenon by which people tend to develop a preference for things merely because they are familiar with them. The effect has been demonstrated with many kinds of things, paintings, pictures of faces, geometric figures, and sounds. So, mere exposure to information means begin to like just by being constantly exposed to something or someone, which means if we are exposed to certain information or if we learn about something, we will develop an attitude towards it. So, attitude also develop as a result of the information to which the individual is exposed. Most of our attitudes are based on our knowledge of men and matters. So, if we are ignorant about a person or situation, we will have no attitude towards it. For example, we are very much aware of the COVID-19 pandemic situations, right? Everybody is facing so much of trouble or everybody is suffering because of that. So our lifestyle, our attitude, our behavior has changed because of this situation, right? So do you agree? So everybody's lifestyle and everybody's behavior has changed because of this. So we are facing so much of inconvenience because of this COVID-19, right? So if as we know about this, we are aware of it and we have a attitude towards it. Either it may be positive attitude or either it may be a negative attitude. Because we have information about this COVID-19, we are taking necessary steps to avoid it, or to we are taking precautions to keep us safe from this pandemic situation or this dreadful disease called COVID-19. If we had no knowledge about COVID-19 or the effects about it, if we are unaware of this situation, then how would our attitude be? So we have no knowledge about that, so we would be as we were earlier. So because we know about this, so we wear mask, use sanitizers, wash our hands, change our living habitat, we are not going outside unless and until it is very necessary, right? But if we were not knowing about this disease or this situation, we would be ignorant towards it, and we would have no attitude towards it. We would continue to live our normal life as we used to live 8 months ago, right? So because we know about that, we have changed our attitude towards it. So we have possessed a negative attitude towards COVID-19. So therefore it says that if we know about something, or we are exposed to certain information, according to that information we develop, or our attitude develops towards it. Either it may be negative or positive. So we have developed a negative attitude towards COVID-19, right? So if the people of a community know very little about this COVID-19, then they have no attitudes concerning this matter. A newspaper publishes a series of articles describing this situation or about COVID-19. Because we read those articles, because we watch news, because we study, uh, we know, or people come to know about the massive disruptive situation. As a result, a strong negative attitude towards COVID-19, or a strong positive attitude towards the COVID-19 warriors has developed, right? And because of our knowledge or exposure to knowledge, we develop our attitude. Clear? And the next factor is associative learning. There are two ways in which we can learn by association, either implicitly through classical conditioning, or explicitly through operant condition. So, by associating ourselves with a group where we work, or where we live, or where we study, is also important in formation of attitude. So if an individual is associated with a number of groups like family, neighborhood, peer groups, cultural groups, etc., like colleagues and friends, this group exert pressure on the individual members to conform to the group norms. So it pressurizes, or it makes the members to live according to the group conditions or rules and regulations of that group. So if we are students, we the attitude is like students, right? So if in a classroom each and every student behave the same, because if everybody is listening to a lecture, they listen to it, right? So if we belong to a particular group, we should adjust ourselves to that group and follow the rules and regulations of that particular group. And the norms and values of the group are internalized through the formation of attitude. So the norms and the values of that group makes a person to form attitude, or it helps the person's personality to in the process of formation of attitude. So group norms tell that the right attitudes and people are rewarded if they hold these right attitudes. Otherwise, they are met with social disapproval. If the individual wants to be accepted by the group, he has to adopt that attitude, right? So if we want ourselves to be accepted in the society, we should live according to the society, and we should associate ourselves by learning the rules and regulations, norms and values of that particular group. So now if we are living in India, we should adopt the cultures, norms of Indians, right? So if we want others to accept us or live with us in harmony, we should adopt the rules and regulations, norms of that particular group. So if we are students, we should follow the rules and regulations of students. If we are working in a place, we should adopt the rules and regulations of our working environment, or of where we work, right? So next is perception. Personal experiences and interactions in the social environment lead to the formation of attitude. If we have a pleasant experience with a person, our attitude towards him is likely to be positive. In the same way, if we have unpleasant experiences with him, we may develop negative attitude. For example, a traumatic experience of an individual with a policeman makes him develop a negative attitude towards him. If a person experiences bad situations with a policeman, or if he faces a badly behaved policeman, he would experience a traumatic situation, or he may go under trauma, or he may be fearful about policemen. So in the same way, if we are well treated with a policeman, if we see a good policeman, our attitude towards them will be positive. If we have a bad experience with the policeman, we may possess negative attitude, right? So therefore, our self perception or our self knowledge or our personal experiences are also very important in attitude formation. They also direct our attitude and help us to form a better personality and makes us to improve our behavior. According to self perception theory, if we are unaware of our own attitude, or if we are unsure of our own attitude, to understand them is we can understand our attitude by looking at our behavior. So the idea behind self perception theory is that we form our attitudes not due to exposure or associative learning, but from observations of our own behavior. So we can understand our attitude by looking at our behavior. So most of people would agree that, for example, if a person is interested in road biking, he would buy bike or the equipments which are needed for cycling and go on bicycling, right? So that is, the person's attitude influence his or her behavior. So because attitude is the invisible part of behavior, and behavior is the visible part of our personality, so attitude influences our behavior, and by understanding our behavior we can understand our attitude. So self perception also helps us to form helps in attitude formation. Next is functional approach. The three ways in which attitude can form discussed so far are exposure to knowledge, self perception, and learning. Typically, people are not aware of mere exposure effects, nor conditioning, nor the fact that their behaviors can sometimes influence their attitude. All of these theories argue that attitude formation is a passive process. According to functional approach, attitudes are sometimes formed based on the degree to which they satisfy different psychological needs. So according to this approach, the functional approach says that our formation of attitude happens on the degree at which our needs are satisfied. So this is an active rather than passive theory. Education is also a very important component of attitude formation, because many of us have developed negative attitude towards the practice of untouchability, caste system, etc. because of education, right? Because of secular education system, we have developed the attitude to accept everyone and live in harmony with everyone in the society, and we have abolished the system of untouchability, and many of the people don't follow caste system because of education. Further, owing to modern education, people have developed scientific attitude towards life. Because of knowledge or because of education, people have changed their lifestyle and have adopted scientific attitude towards life. And needs satisfaction also develops attitude in the process of need satisfaction. So it is also very important in the process of attitude formation, because an individual develops attitude in the process of his need satisfaction. He develops favorable attitude towards objects and persons who are instrumental or helpful in satisfying his various wants and needs, and unfavorable attitude towards objects and person who block his way of satisfying his needs and wants. For example, so before independence, landless laborers formed positive attitude towards land reforms as it helped them in satisfying their need of owing land. So when our needs are satisfied, a person tends to have favorable attitude, but instead if our needs are not satisfied, the attitude may be unfavorable. For example, if you are hungry and you get food to eat, your attitude will be satisfied, right? So you show a satisfied attitude and you will be pleased or happy. But instead, if your hunger is not satisfied, or if your hunger is not filled with food, you would tend to have a unfavorable behavior, right? So need satisfaction is also very important in attitude formation. Influence attitude. The psychological factors that influence attitude of a person are like ideas, values, beliefs, perception, etc. All these have a important role in determining a person's attitude. So next is economic. A person's attitude also depends on issues such as his salary, status, work, etc. So based on our salary, our status, and the place where we work, or the position at which we work, also determines our attitude. And the most important is family. Family plays a significant role in the primary stage of attitudes held by individual, because initially a person develops certain attitudes from his parents, brothers, sisters, and elders in the family. So our elders teach us and direct us in a better way of living, right? So attitude also develops with the help of family. Next is society. Societies play an important role in formation of attitude of an individual, that on the basis of the culture, the tradition, the language, etc. influence a person's attitude. And society, tradition, and the culture teach individuals what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So the society teaches us to behave well in the society. For example, it teaches us that murder is not acceptable in the society, and a good behavior is acceptable in the society, where we should live according to the rules and regulations of the society, right? So society is also very helpful in formation of attitude. Next is our own experiences. Attitudes form directly as a result of experience. They may come out due to direct personal experience, or they may result from observation. As we observe or as we experience certain situations, our attitude forms, or the attitude process occurs. Clear? Next is social factors. Social rules and social norms can have a strong influence on attitude. Social roles are how people are expected to behave in a particular role or context. Social norms involve society's rules for what behaviors are considered appropriate. So, in every society, the certain behaviors are considered as appropriate, right? So, if we are a sane person, if we are a normal person, we should have certain attitudes which are acceptable in the society. For example, if now I am a teacher, so I should behave like a teacher. Instead of that, if I start behaving like a mad person, then that attitude is not acceptable in the society. So therefore, so based on our social role, we should perform our attitude, or we should exhibit our behaviors. So there are every person exhibits different kind of social roles, like we play the role of a child, a daughter, mother, sister, brother, whatever role it may be. So based on our role, our attitude should be conducted. Clear? The process of attitude formation is a lifelong process. Through education, understanding of information, and positive environment, attitudes can change in a socially desired direction. So, as already explained earlier, self is composed of all the meaning which the individual has about himself and his relation to the world around him. What the person considers himself to be consists of interrelated self attitudes. His goals, objectives, expectations, etc. help his self attitude. These self attitudes bring out a consistency in his behavior. Attitude towards the self, like attitudes towards any other object, can be either positive or negative in various situations. Therefore, an individual's basic need is for a self image that is very positive. If it is negative, the individual experiences anxiety and emotional disturbances. So, if a person is well behaved, his attitude will be positive, and if a person is not well behaved or if a person's attitude is negative, then he may experience anxiety and emotional disturbances. He might get frustrated. If the individual is realistic, he evaluates the negative things by others and suitably modifies his own attitude towards self. For example, if a person understands that lying is a bad habit, then he modifies his behavior and stops telling lies. Therefore, if a person is realistic, he can modify his attitude. He tries to build up capabilities and skills that will reduce the consequent errors. This ultimately helps him to build up a positive self image. When there is interaction between the attitude an individual has towards himself and the attitudes of others towards him, a positive self image develops, leading to a healthy personality. So, self and attitude both should be balanced to build a better personality. So, to build a proper self image, a person should have a balance between the self and the attitude components. So we can make ourselves better by improving our attitude. Therefore, these are all the components which helps us to develop a better self. Those are perception, cognition, and attitude. Clear? So here ends this chapter. In next class we will start our new chapter. Thank you.